Hi, I'm Linda and this is Untitled Permaculture. Today I just want to share with you how I manage my ruminant animals using rotational grazing and why I choose to do this. Permaculture uses many techniques to improve landscape and create abundant systems, and rotational grazing is just one such technique. One of the reasons I moved here was so that I could grow my own food, which would not only nourish me but also help me heal. My gut health over the years had been impacted by antibiotics, processed foods, chlorine in the water, stress, and who knows what else. Our modern way of living had had a negative impact on me, so I needed to make some changes. So that's why I find myself here. Organic meats, fats and broth are important to my healing, so growing my own animals for food was a priority. Just over 18 months ago, the sheep arrived. I also brought in a couple of alpacas to help protect young lambs from foxes, and they will also provide fleece, which I hope one day to spin into yarn. The quality of food that grazing animals provide is really determined by how they are raised. A grass-fed animal has a different nutritional profile to one raised in a feedlot and those fed grains. The learning I did prior to my arrival here also made me very aware that you could regenerate land with the help of ruminants being managed with rotational grazing. Ruminant animals kept on the move help build soils rather than deplete them, so that was important to me as well. Turns out building a healthy soil should be our main focus as the health of everything else naturally follows. Rotational grazing is used to mimic the way large herds once ranged across the landscape, being moved on constantly by the threat of predators. Herds spent less time in one place and didn't return to the same place until the grasses recovered. Overgrazing was never an issue. Overgrazing is when animals stay in one place for too long. The grasses can't recover and they start to use up their energy reserves in the roots instead of gaining new energy from the sun through photosynthesis. So the length of time an animal should stay in one place is the time it takes for the grasses to start growing again, which is around 3 to 4 days. It's important not to return to graze this same area until the plants have regrown, ideally 4 true leaves and the bottom leaf is starting to yellow, or so long as the plant has grown since the last time you were there. When the grasses are growing fast, you move your animals fast, and when the grasses are growing slowly, you move your animals slowly. Grazing plans are available that help to ensure that you never overgraze a plant. With the animals moved on, the grasses are left to grow. The organic matter from the manure and trampled leaves, along with the grass roots, all feed the soil organisms that then cycle the nutrients back to the plants. The topsoil layer increases rather than decreases, which is what happens with conventional unmanaged grazing. The soil structure improves so that water infiltrates more freely, and with increased organic matter in the soil, the water holding capacity is increased. The system becomes more resilient in the presence of climate extremes. So, what does rotational grazing on 5 acres with a few animals look like? Let me show you. Each morning I wander up to the animals and give them a fresh new paddock to feed on. They're usually very happy with this and are generally impatient for their move. They do have to wait a while as moving them does take some time, but the benefits are worth putting in this little bit of effort. Putting up the nets to form the new paddock is quick and easy some days, but takes time on other days. The permaculture system with swales on contour and the lay of the land and placement of structures all have to be worked around, so it can be straightforward or complicated. Single wires might work well for cows, but I use nets which are good when I have small lambs. It means everyone stays in. Once I've got the nets up, I let the animals in, which generally takes a couple of seconds. They're pretty keen to move. Then I have to move the water and pack up the net from the old paddock. Finally turn on the fence. I've just been using a solar energizer, which has been easy to move around, and I can locate it where it's convenient to turn on and off. Last month I introduced a Dexter cow and young steer to the farm. It did take a little acclimatising them to the lush pasture and slowly moving them to where the sheep were. The plan is to move these guys in front of the sheep, as they prefer to feed on long grasses, whereas sheep will graze the shorter grass quite happily. Increasing the number of animal species within the system not only feeds me a variety of healthy meats, but also helps reduce parasite pressure. Rotating animals improves the forage height, which helps to reduce exposure to parasites. But not returning to the same piece of ground for 4 to 6 weeks means that larvae may die before the area is grazed again. Cattle and sheep parasites are host specific. If a cow ingests a larva from a parasite that affects sheep, the parasite dies, as the cow is not its usual host. Same happens if the sheep ingests the cow parasite. So having mixed species grazing helps to reduce parasite numbers. In theory, it shouldn't take too much longer to move the 2 sets of animals around, with just 1 paddock each day to set up and pack up like before. In practice, however, it takes longer thinking through the whole fence setup and moving everyone to make sure both species have adequate feed and you've left enough fences for the next day's move. With the cows on board now, I'm hooking up to the perimeter electric fence just to keep the system hot enough with the extra fences up. My aim is to improve grass quality, plant numbers and variety by improving the soil food web, which is all the organisms in the soil. Rotational grazing will achieve this. By letting grasses regenerate fully, increases the root system and better feeds these soil organisms, which are integral to nutrient cycling. An intact soil food web feeds the grass plants a wide range of nutrients and produces more nutrient-dense forage plants for the animals. Hopefully down the track I'll keep about the same number of sheep and cows on a smaller area of pasture, while increasing my perennial plantings and food forest. It is an evolving system. Over time, increases in complexity and diversity will create a more resilient system and support not only myself and to some degree my community, but also the wildlife who've come to call this home. The whole system will be better prepared to face the effects of climate change, with improved water cycling as a result of managed grazing. What I'm doing here is not perfect, but I am learning a lot and I am finding my pasture is slowly improving. While it takes time and dedication to constantly move these animals, it's the system as a whole that benefits. So I think that it's time really well spent.